Hello, folks. Good evening. As usual, we'll read to you the last 7 daily inspirational titles, and you guys can go ahead and pick one. And here they are. Okay, looking at the world with forgiving eyes, creating a kinder world, experiencing our wholeness by sharing it, understanding the acts of frustration and anger, forgiveness, peace, joy, and gratitude as core inherent values. Today, enjoy the bounty of your harvest, and releasing the present from the past and future.
Can you do number one, the forgiveness one, please?
Looking at the world with forgiving eyes.
Yeah, that one.
And that will be the October 6th condensed version, daily inspirational message. It's 2 paragraphs long. I'll go ahead and read them, then make a couple comments, and then we can go from there. And here it is. Okay, looking at the world with forgiving eyes. Paragraph 1. Today, let us make the conscious decision to look upon this world and those in it with forgiving eyes. Forgiveness is an expression of love. Love is a principal energy and expression of our Creator. When we choose forgiveness, we are aligning with our Creator. When you align with the divine, you feel peace. When you are aligning with God or any of love's expressions, you are aligning with your eternal essence and nature. When you align with your eternal essence and nature, you feel fulfilled because you're doing what God created you to do, in essence, to be a light within the darkness. You are God's creation, forever worthy of forgiveness and peace. Being all one, your brothers and sisters are equally worthy of these gifts too. Today, offer these gifts to all you think of and interact with, so that you may experience them flowing through you and throughout your day. Paragraph 2. We can only truly understand what is happening when we choose to see this world through God's love's lens. The divine being love created this world to be seen and experienced through loving and forgiving eyes. Still, our free will allows us to see a loving world where our experiences help us grow, heal, and awaken, or to block our sight to what is truly there. Today, before we meet anyone, let us pray. Dear God, let me view this world as you, love, do. Let my compassion, love, mercy, and grace help diminish my brothers or sisters' confusion and fear. Let their expressions of conflict be transformed into harmony by my peaceful presence. Let their cries of pain and sorrow be soothed and healed by my choice to value their eternal loving essence more than what their bodies might think, say, or do. Now, in this sanctuary that my loving state provides, let them experience true rest and peace. Thank you, God. Amen. And end of paragraph 2. All right. So, the idea for today's daily inspiration is to remember that you have free will, first of all, right? And so you can choose to see which lens you see this world through. You can choose to see the world through judgmental eyes or forgiving eyes. One way of seeing the world leads you to peace and to the heavenly state of mind, and the other way of viewing the world leads you to pain and the hellish mindset. Okay? And so when you go into any interaction, let's say that it's a challenging individual, okay? Or even a family member that can be considered a challenging individual because maybe they kind of test your patience. Okay. So if you go into it already with a goal already set, and so the goal for today's daily inspiration would be forgiveness, right? And so go into the interaction saying to yourself, no matter what my brother says or does, I am going to look at him or her through forgiving eyes. That's my goal for the interaction. And because you have a goal already set for the interaction, there's a clearer path to peace, right? If you have a goal for the interaction. And again, it doesn't have to be a family member. It could be your drive to work. Let's say sometimes driving, you feel anxious driving, right? So before you get into the car, you say to yourself, okay, I'm going to look at every person on the street, every other car with forgiving eyes, with mercy and grace. And so you go into your car with your goal already set. And so you go into your car with compassion, mercy, and grace as your driving companions. And so now when somebody cuts you off, now you know how to answer because you already have the answer set. Okay. So if your family members are individuals who sometimes trigger your patience, you already have the answer set. It's forgiveness, it's compassion, it's mercy and grace. If those people on the drive to work cut you off, you already have the answer set. It's forgiveness, compassion, mercy, and grace. And so until you understand that forgiveness is your primary and natural and normal response to your brothers and sisters, you have to go into those kind of interactions with your goal already set. And then today's lesson plan is looking at the world with forgiving eyes. And so you have to make forgiveness your conscious companion for those interactions. And as you make them a conscious companion, as you say to yourself, okay, compassion, forgiveness, mercy, and grace are my constant companion, are my constant answer to my brother and sister, no matter what they think, say, or do. That's my answer to them. Compassion, forgiveness, mercy, and grace. Okay? When those become your answers to your brothers and sisters, no matter what they do or say, because you have those companions, the experience of your expression is going to be peace. And so you see, you have peace, and that peace doesn't have anything to do with what your brothers or sisters said on the phone or what your brothers and sisters did in the other cars. You have peace because you went into those interactions with your goals already set. And so it doesn't matter what happens out there because you already have your goals set. The expression of your experience is going to be one of peace. And you'll see that your brothers and sisters are only helping you practice choosing peace, choosing forgiveness over judgment, and thus peace over pain. And so now all those people who cut you off in traffic, or all those times that your family member has you on the phone and you're a little bit anxious to get off the phone or whatever the experience is, because you have the answers already set, the destination is already set. It's kind of like when you set the destination on your GPS, right? If your destination is peace and you already set the destination of peace and you already know the roads to take you there, such as peace, such as mercy, grace, compassion, understanding, all those lead you to peace, forgiveness in this case. You already have the road set, so you already have the destination set. So no matter what happens in the journey, the roads and destination are already set. And so, but you have to set them consciously until you have done it so often that now it becomes an unconscious setting of a goal. You already know that your goal is peace. And you know your goal is peace because that's what God created you to be, a light in the world, right? And so a reflection of that light in the world is peace. So when you are peace, you're being the light of the world, which means you're fulfilling your function as the light of the world, which means you feel fulfilled. And so your brothers and sisters actually providing the opportunities for you to practice choosing in alignment with your destination, and thus making what was once a conscious decision an unconscious decision. So now you choose peace through forgiveness, mercy, grace, understanding in each moment in an interaction, simply because of all those times you got to practice consciously making a decision to choose peace. And so this is kind of like a reprogramming of the mind. You know how the Course in Miracles says the ego answers first and loudest, right? So your primary unconscious response to somebody cutting you off is judgment, some sort of judgment. Your primary response to a family member keeping you too long on the phone is some sort of judgment, right? So that's your program response. It's not who you truly are, right? It's your programming. And so the idea here, by choosing to look at the world through forgiving eyes, is to practice reprogramming yourself. Practice setting aside the ego's program response and consciously setting a new response until you don't have to consciously set it because that's your primary and normal response. Okay? And so that's roughly what we tried to do today, to reprogram our minds to think in alignment with the mind of God, which is love, and that expression of love, which is forgiveness or peace or compassion or mercy or grace. Okay? And so you make it conscious goals until they become unconscious because you set it up so often that now you know that your primary purpose is that destination of peace. Any questions or comments on what I just said? Good night then.
Hi, James. I
Hi.
have a question.
Yes.
Um,
Right.
yeah. Um, I want to ask about like why is it harder to forgive um myself than forgiving others? Um, uh, and the other question is you it's it's so nice to be able to have this mindset. You know, Jesus teaching you turn the other cheek. It's so nice to have that, you know, if you can be that, to do that, to apply that. Um, how can you do it more consistently? But the other flip side is how do you know that you're also uh like not subject to abuse if you're always turning your cheek? Or is there no such thing as abuse in if you know if you want to be Christ-like, um you're always giving. So it's like, what about boundaries? Because you know people are also talking about, yeah. So those are like I think 3-in-1 questions.
Okay. Okay. Why is it harder to forgive yourself? Okay. I mean, who really knows you better than you, right? And so, who knows every single mistake, in quotes, every single sin, in quotes, you have ever done? Every single time you reacted with anger instead of love, or fear instead of love, you know? So, who who do you think knows you best? You, right? But you don't know the others as well as you know you, right? So you have less judgment of others and more judgment of yourself, right? Because you know every single, in quotes, sin and mistakes you have made, right? As a human being. Okay? So you know yourself fully and you know others partially, right? So obviously it's going to be harder to forgive this yourself than this, right? Okay. Now, what we have to recall is that this here and this here in reality are not real or true, because in reality you are love, and in reality your brothers and sisters are love. So in reality, once you get connected with source, with love, and see the world through loving and forgiving eyes, it becomes as easy to forgive them as to forgive yourself. Okay, so it only becomes harder for you to forgive yourself because you have this larger story. Okay, where each, quote in quotes, sin and mistake made you different from source. right? And so if you made all these sins and mistakes, right, then how can you be worthy of God's forgiveness, right? And so you have all these stories that say you're unworthy of God's forgiveness. But of course, what does the Course in Miracles say? Course in Miracles says that God does not forgive because he has never judged. Okay? And so you're only judging yourself because of your story, because of all the details that you know within your story. And that's why it's harder to forgive yourself than to forgive others who you just know a little part of their story. Or your ego just knows a little part of the story. But your true story is love, and their true story is love. And only love is real. So the stories, those sins and mistakes that you quote unquote made, that unconsciously separated you from your belief that you're worthy of forgiveness, okay, is showing you that it is just a story. And again, God does not forgive because he does not judge. So make it a point to consciously try to look at yourself only as God sees you. I mean, who's probably more correct in who you truly are? The way that God looks at you, or the way that you look at yourself? Right? You look at yourself only as you've been programmed to look at yourself. And you've been programmed by the ego. And the ego is judgment-centric, fear-based. And so is it any wonder why it feels harder to forgive yourself? But you see, no matter how many sins or mistakes you have in your mind about yourself, how many X's you have in relation to your worthiness of God, all those X's are not real or true. They're all scribed on a fiction book, on a fairy tale, right? So no matter how many X's you have on a fairy tale, it's still a fairy tale, right? It's not real or it's not true. And so it's only harder to forgive yourself because you think you know yourself more than other people. But in reality, you only know the story of the ego more, of your story more than other people's stories. That's why it's harder to forgive yourself. So you have to forgive the story. No matter how many X's in the fairy tale, it's only one fairy tale. So you can close the book on the fairy tale and place it aside, right? And now you see that you are worthy of forgiveness. And the more you consciously become aware that you are worthy of God's forgiveness, the easier it becomes to forgive yourself. Okay. So that's the only difference why it's harder to forgive yourself than others, because you think you know yourself better. Okay. But it's all illusionary. Whatever that separates you from God is illusionary in nature. It's not real, it's not true. It's not the real you. And so all that separates you from having an easier time to forgive yourself as you forgive others is to realize that their story that says that there's something other than love is not real, and therefore the story of you is not real. Those stories that say that you're less than love is not real or true. And it makes sense to try to see yourself as God sees you, which is only as love's creation, only love. That is who you truly are. The more you consciously practice doing that, the more you'll see how easy it is to, in truth, forgive yourself. Because you would say, well, why would God want me to forgive myself? Okay, if you're blocking who you truly are, right? The truth in you is the light of the world. You're the light of the world, correct? But if you're consciously blocking or unconsciously blocking this light from the world, right? How do you block this light from the world? Through your self judgments, through your self hate, through your condemnation of yourself for your quote unquote incorrect behavior. That's how you block your light. That's what the ego wants. The ego wants you separate from source so that it can have you to itself, right? And so why does God want you to forgive yourself? Because he didn't create you to be he didn't create you to add darkness to darkness. He created you to add light to darkness. right? So he needs you to let go of this stuff here, the self-judgment. He needs you to let go of that stuff. So he wants you to forgive yourself. So you can let go of these blocks that are blocking your light so that you can become who he created you to be, which is the light of the world. So just remember that when you're feeling unworthy of forgiveness, of forgiving yourself, is that God wants you to forgive yourself so that you can become the light of the world. That's question one. Does that make somewhat sense a little bit?
Yes, yes. Very, very helpful.
Okay, question two. How do you do it more consistently? It's kind of like we were talking about earlier in the class, is practice doing this consciously. Practice setting the goal. When your day starts, set the goal. No matter what quote unquote mistake or sin I make today that seems to separate me from the love that I am, I'm going to forgive myself because I know that God forgives me. Because God knows that I need to be, I came here to be a light in the world. So if God forgives me, I'll forgive myself. So practice consciously forgiving your misperceptions of self or others, your less than perfect behavior, according to the ego. Okay. So practice self-love, self-compassion, self-forgiveness. And you're not being selfish when you do this, okay? That's one thing the ego would say, well, if I practice all this self-love and self-forgiveness, somehow I'm being selfish because I'm not being real, right? But you remember, we're all one, right? So whatever you fill your cup with, in the end overflows, okay? So if you fill your cup with self-compassion, self-forgiveness, with mercy towards self, with grace towards self, guess what your cup gets filled with? All those loving and compassionate emotions and energies, right? So that sooner or later overflows to others, right? So the more you fill your cup with that self-compassion, that mercy and grace for yourself, sooner or later that mercy, compassion, and grace is shown unto all others, is given to all others. So if you want to do it more consistently, you have to consciously set the goal every morning when you wake up. No matter what the ego says about me, how much I should judge myself, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to forgive myself because God created me to be a light in this world. And one way to that light is through the act of forgiveness. Because forgiveness is an aspect and reflection of love. And love is our creator, right? And love is light. So when you're forgiving yourself, you're aligning with the mind of God and you're becoming a brighter and brighter light. And so you do that consciously, proactively. Set the goal. I'm going to be more merciful towards myself today, no matter how many quote unquote sins or mistakes I make. And I'm going to do so because I know that God wants me to do this so that I can become a light in the world. Does that answer a little bit of the second question?
Yeah, it's more of like the teaching of Jesus, turn the other cheek. You know, like if somebody does something to you, you forgive, and then you turn the other cheek. So that's kind
Yeah,
of the idea. That's kind of hard.
that was kind of like the third part of the question. About just
Yeah,
setting,
well, no, that one is the second part. Then the third part is, but what about boundaries? Like you turn your other cheek, but then when does it, like, you shouldn't be doing that
yeah. Well, the second
because
part,
of the boundary.
the
So
second part,
the,
as I
the,
remember, yeah, the
the
second part,
sec
as I remember it, was consistency. How do you be more
yeah, but
consistent?
consistency also, yeah, yeah.
And so the way to do that
Consistency
is by
in
being more
practicing.
proactive.
Yeah.
And then the third part that I remember the question is how do you begin to set self-loving boundaries when you're being merciful towards self or others?
Mm.
Like okay, let's say somebody's abusive, aka what they did to Jesus, right? So how do you forgive them for they know not what they do, kind of thing, when they're slapping you or doing worse, right? And so you have to remember this: perfectly fine to set self-loving boundaries. There's nothing wrong with that, right? And so if somebody's being abusive over and over and over again, right, you can set those self-loving boundaries. You can say, no, I don't deserve to be treated this way. And then you can do whatever brings you peace. Do what brings you peace and you will have peace. And so setting those self-loving boundaries is perfectly fine. You can forgive, let's say somebody was mean to you or said bad words to you or whatever, right? Mentally abused you, let's say. You can forgive them, okay? But you don't have to remain in the situation. So you can depart with forgiveness and mercy and grace. But when you depart, let's say if you physically depart, you do so with forgiveness, mercy, and grace so that you don't have to carry that judgment with you, that self-judgment. Now, you might say, well, maybe it's my husband and I can't leave my husband, that kind of thing. And we decided to stay for the children or what have you. So I have to stay in that situation. Well, you have to do what brings you peace. But you do have to practice remembering that you're worthy of setting those boundaries. And so maybe I'm not sure how you would want to handle that, but yes, you are worthy of those self-loving boundaries. But when you set those boundaries, you still have to forgive, because either you forgive that action, or you hold judgment towards that action and that person, right? So don't complicate your life in that sense. You only have two choices when somebody does something less than loving in nature. You forgive them, or you hold judgment towards them. When you forgive them, you'll have peace, internal peace. When you have judgment, you'll carry that burden with you. Okay? And so forgive them, and then do your best to set some sort of boundaries where that behavior is not, in essence, tolerated. You know, the way they speak to you, and if you can't leave the situation. Is that a little bit useful, or did you want something else?
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, Wendy's raising her hand.
Yes, Wendy, do you have a comment, or does anybody have a comment or a question in regards to Joyce?
Oh, no, mine isn't in regard to Joey's. So I'll wait.
Okay. Anybody else in regards to Joy? Okay, go ahead, Wendy.
Okay. Well, you don't deal with the body stuff, but mine has to do with that. So here's what happened. I used to be like, okay, I'll just tell you the current situation. The current situation is this. My body became very dysregulated, as anybody who's been in the course has seen. And something seemed to happen because of that I I'm not going to say I lost my peace totally, but I sort of regressed would be the best way to say it. So I am holding a grievance against somebody. And when you talk about forgiveness, you make it sound like it's a one-time thing. I've got some kind of weird emotional loop happening in my head. And I am not kidding about this because, and I'm not talking about my daughter. I have been literally threatened with my life and had an easier time forgiving than this. It was a betrayal of a particular sort, and it caused me a great deal of damage, but I know the person meant no malice. There was no malintent at all. We are no longer in communication, but and half the time I feel compassion and forgiveness, and then the loop will come right back around and I'm angry, and I don't know if like I need like I don't want to do a spiritual bypass or something. I'm not quite sure what to do if I feel forgiving and I feel so much compassion for this person sometimes, and then it'll flip right around and I am just pissed because of what it did to me. So that's sort of what I'm asking about is what I've tried to do, because I tried to like look this up to, to not let it overtake me. So what I tried to do is like imagine it like a movie theater. I think what miracles people would be like going above the battleground. I'll let it every time I catch myself in those negative thoughts of what happened to me, I'll put it on a movie screen. I'll imagine myself like sitting there watching it instead of being involved. But you can't fake forgiveness and you can't feel forgiveness at the same time you're feeling betrayed or angry. Do you know what I mean? But then later, I'll be like, this person didn't mean any harm to me. And I love this person and I don't want them to suffer on my behalf. And I hope they have peace and I hope I have peace. And it goes round and round and round. So clearly, I feel crazy. And if you could fix that, you'd be better than a therapist. You may proceed.
So your question is having, okay, you respond with less than compassion towards yourself because of how you are responding. If it's not always a perfect response, like a forgiving response, you mean?
No, it's not about me. It's about that I switch from feeling compassion and forgiveness for this person and just wanting us both to have peace to then feeling very betrayed and angry and like it just like I said it comes around in a loop and it's almost a non-stop loop, which makes it even worse. Like it takes up a lot of my brain a lot of the time. I would very much like to free us both from it, even though we're not in contact, but just in my head I would like it. So I just don't
Okay,
do it.
first, it's useful to, you said it's not about me, okay? You said that phrase, but it's useful to think about it this way. It is about me, okay? It's about my response to the situation. I go from having forgiveness and compassion to feeling betrayed and angry. Okay, I go from that from here to here. I do that.
Correct.
It's, don't say it's not about me. Take personal responsibility for your reaction to what's going on.
I thought what you said is that I'm judging myself for doing that, and that's what I said. It's not about that I was judging myself for doing that. I'm worried that I'm not experiencing something I need to experience in order to get to the full forgiveness part. Is what I was trying to say. When I said it wasn't about me, I thought it's because you were saying I'm judging myself, and I was like, no, that's not what I'm feeling like is the issue. I'm feeling like the issue is I haven't figured out the way to completely do the forgiveness, and I must be missing something. Because I know forgiveness is only for myself. I would like to be at peace. I would also like that person. I only wish that person peace. I just, like I said, I feel like there's something that I'm missing.
Yeah, I did say you're judging yourself because you are judging yourself. Okay, that's why I said it. Okay, because there's two ways you're reacting, right? One is with forgiveness and compassion, and the other one is with betrayal and feeling angry, right? So you have two ways that you're responding. One, when you respond with forgiveness and compassion, you're saying, "Oh, great, I'm doing a good job. I'm doing a good job with this situation." Okay, but when you react with feeling betrayed and angry, then you are judging yourself as less than because you reacted with feeling betrayed and angry. So you are judging yourself. You are judging your response. But who's doing it? You are. You are judging yourself for your response because you're saying my response is less than perfect. Okay? So what you have to do is take personal responsibility for your response. Okay? Note that you are judging yourself. Okay? And now practice. You judge yourself. Okay? That didn't work, right? You didn't feel good about this. You're feeling betrayed and angry. You judge yourself for feeling betrayed and angry. Now you have to think of it another way. Okay, how can I lower this feeling of betrayal and anger? How can I lower this? You lower it by having mercy and compassion towards your own response towards the situation. And so when you're feeling betrayed and angry, don't punish yourself for that. Just recognize, okay, I'm feeling betrayed and angry, that means that currently, in this specific moment, my ego is in control of my thinking. Okay, let me take back control of my thinking, because I know that ego never leads me to peace. So it's okay that I felt betrayal and angry, but catch yourself as soon as you can, feeling those emotions, stopping those emotions, not placing any more time, focus on energy on those emotions and energies. Thus, you cut off their fuel, you forgive yourself for thinking that way, and now you come back, take back control of your mind, okay? And instead of placing your time, focus, and energy on feeling betrayed and angry, you now go back to forgiveness and compassion. And so all those times that you get to practice going from feeling betrayed and angry to compassion and forgiveness, all those times that you go from here to here, from here to here, the more you do this, the more you go to a higher level consciously, the more natural and normal and quick this behavior becomes. And now you spend less and less time in betrayal and anger, and more time in forgiveness and compassion. And so you use this experience, this practice, from going from this lower level to this higher level. Now you see that the more you do so, the easier it becomes to stay in this higher level. But it only becomes easy to stay in this higher level because you got to practice going from the lower level to the higher level of thinking. And so you don't have to punish yourself when you're in this quote unquote lower level. You say, okay, this is a perfect opportunity for me, this moment, not to condemn my brother or sister, but to take conscious control of my thinking and align my thoughts with love, with God, with compassion and forgiveness, not betrayal and anger. And so, see, when you take personal responsibility for the thoughts that you're thinking, then you can change your thoughts, which then you can change your world. Because when you have a peaceful mind and you see the world through that lens of peace and compassion and mercy and grace, not only towards your brothers or sisters, but towards yourself, then the whole world changes. And now you don't judge yourself anymore for having quote unquote lower level responses. Now you see this as an opportunity to practice going to a higher level response. Okay? So you see what I'm saying? A
I
little bit.
I do see what you're saying, but I don't feel the conversation's finished until you tell me I have to be grateful for it.
Okay, then after you've practiced going from this lower level of betrayal and anger to this higher level of compassion and forgiveness, who helped you? Who helped you practice going from this lower level to this higher level? That sister or brother that the ego was having you condemn gave you the opportunities to practice going from here, judging and anger, to compassion and forgiveness. So what's now the appropriate response to your brother or sister for giving you the opportunity to practice? The response is gratitude.
I feel better now. Thank you, James.
Yes.
That was really helpful because you know what? As I thought it through, as you were saying it, I was like, oh, yeah, I am judging myself every time I get angry. I think I'm judging that person, but I am judging myself. Yom Kippur just passed, and there's a prayer that you say that says, "No, let nobody suffer on my behalf for anything they did to me, willingly or unwillingly or knowingly or unknowingly." And I always think about that you're just, you're supposed to forgive, and I have not been forgiving. So half the time, the other half the time, pretty good. But anyway, grateful for you, birthday boy. Thank you.
Yeah. I think Yvonne has a comment or a question. Yeah, Yvonne?
Hi, sorry, just trying to find unmute. Okay. No, Wendy, hey, I just wanted to say and add to that I think that all of the forgiveness is like you said, it's not a switch. And also just something I've been trying to understand myself is that like emotion is a communication tool to inform us, through the body, through the nervous system. So sometimes I try to be curious about what that anger is trying to tell me. It's often not really the thing itself, but something deeper that's resurfacing. And maybe it's a way to look at it and say, what is it, what is it telling me that could just increase my level of awareness from that point of view that, we always talk about, that is the higher perspective, that might help that conscious decision next time a bit easier.
Thank you so much. That goes with the lesson. I'm never upset for the reason I think I am.
Yeah.
Thank you. Is that my hand still up? Because I don't know how to lower it.
No.
Okay, good.
Does anybody have a comment, question on Wendy's or Yvonne's
Yes.
comment? Okay. Another Yvonne.
And
Another
you
Yvonne.
stole, yeah, you stole my thunder there, James, but I know it's your word, grateful. But when I was listening to you, Wendy, talk, it brought me back to after my divorce for at least 5 years. I was up and down on a roller coaster of forgiveness, unforgiveness, unsettled, upset with myself, upset with the other person. It was just it was rough. And really what got me out of it, and I remember coming to many of these classes and hearing about gratitude, but being grateful for everything that this person taught me and even, gave me uh in our time together. And I had to constantly remind myself, come back to it, come back to it. And it felt, I don't know, it wasn't a switch because it was like literally like 5 years. That was a long time. When I just fell more into the gratitude, I'd say like 80-20 or 90-10, that there was a profound shift. And now, 7 years later, there's rarely any of that, anger and unforgiveness and bad feelings for the person or myself. So,
Thank you. That was very helpful, especially because I don't want to do this for 5 years.
oh God, no, no.
Oh, I'm going to work hard. I don't want-
Totally. I was being so like difficult on myself and the other person. It was not I don't recommend it. It could be done much quicker, I'm sure. But it's done. So I'm happy
I'm
and
happy to hear that you're happy. And thank you so much. So helpful to me.
you're welcome.
Yeah, and anytime that individual comes to mind now, the ego's still going to try to whisper for some sort of judgment, ask or demand some sort of judgment, okay? When that happens, just, okay, I thought about individual X who once triggered me in this kind of situation. And now I remember that I'm worthy of peace. And so I'm going to think of him and I'm going to offer him and I'm going to ask God to please fill him with peace, with joy, with health, being healed and growing. And so, see, every time that individual comes to your mind, practice offering him what you want for yourself, because we're all one, right? So when you practice offering your brother who comes to mind, who you once condemned and judged, now he comes to mind, and now you only close your eyes for a second and you pray for him and give him a little 20-second prayer and say, God, please fill him with light and love and help him heal and grow, help him awaken, and help him find true joy. When you do that for him, when he comes to mind, you're healing yourself. You're healing that past trauma, okay? And so when you go from that place of 70-30, where you were 70 peaceful and 30 not peaceful, then you go to 80-20 with time, then 90-10. You only got to 90-10 because you were once at 70-30, right? So is there any reason to judge yourself for when you were at 70-30 if it got you to 90-10? And so when you start to realize that every part of my journey has helped me come to this place of peace and understanding, you start to have peace towards yourself and your past thinking. So now you forgive your past self and your past thinking. You forgive yourself for those 5 years of ups and downs, because it got you to this greater place of peace. But it was only because you went through that process for 5 years that you got to this place of peace. And now that we know better, next time something like this happens, we don't have to, it doesn't have to take us 5 years. It can take us 5 months or 5 weeks or 5 days, you know. And now we become grateful for the ups and downs of everyday life. Okay. And so when you go to an amusement park, right? Are the children afraid when they get into the roller coasters? Or are they like laughing and you know, they're going up and down in circle, but they're laughing away. If they're at peace with the ups and downs of the roller coaster, we can be at peace with the ups and downs of regular life, right? That's seeming up and downs, because they're all, the up and downs are both helpful. Okay, they both helped us together. They both helped us get to this place of peace. And so if something gets you to a place of peace, well, that's something really bad in the first place. Was it not a gift beneath what was truly going on? Was the gift not really always there? The opportunity to find peace, not always there? It was always there. Just that you had to figure it out that it was always there. Okay? And so peace is just a choice away. No matter the picture of the drama, of the ego story, peace is always just a simple choice away. Like the Course in Miracles says, I can have peace instead of this. Okay? I am worthy of peace. Remind yourself, I am worthy of peace. Because God created me to be a light in the world, and peace is a reflection of that light. Okay. So yes, thank you, Yvonne. Thank you, Wendy. Good example for sure.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Jane.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions in regards to looking at the world with forgiving eyes? Has anybody had a judgmental experience during this week that we can go through? And or a difficult situation that they came to a place of peace? Nobody was judging anybody this week or themselves.
Well,
No,
I did.
All right.
Hey,
Okay.
I did. So today, I had to call my generator guy, and like, he's real abrupt and kind of rude, you know. He's like roughneck kind of, and he was so rude to me, and I just wanted to go off on him, but I restrained myself, and I was being very nice, but it's been playing in my mind. You know, when I got off the phone, I'm like, that damn redneck. Yeah, and I was just, I was just going off in my mind. So I just keep having to ask God, help me to forgive him. Help me to forgive him. He's there for me. He's a lesson. But yeah, that's just been playing in my mind, when people are just really rude, for no reason. So that's what happened to me this week. That was just today, actually.
Yeah.
So this is right on. This call is right on.
Yes. And again, we do what we said earlier in class, is that when that interaction comes back into your mind, okay, it's only being given to you, it's being offered to you for you to recall that in any moment you can choose peace instead of that judgment. You can choose forgiveness instead of that judgment. And so whenever that individual comes to your mind now, again, just close your eyes and give him a 20-second, 30-second prayer. But feel it from the heart, Feel, God, I want, and then remember that I am worthy of peace. But I know to be worthy of peace, I need to let go of this judgment and forgive my brothers and see them only as the light of the world that you created them to be. And so now I humbly request that you send him all your love and all your grace and mercy, and allow me to follow your lead so that I can see him in this manner. And I wish him only peace and joy and happiness and health. And then you feel it, you feel it with all your heart. You feel it giving that individual that peace, that joy, that happiness and health, and you visualize them in a loving light, surrounded by light, and having a wonderful, beautiful life. And you do that every single time the ego brings him into your mind. And the ego's going to say, oh, he was rude. He was rude.
That's easier said than done. That's easier said than done. But what helped me, I'm on the chosen, so I'm on this the section where right before Jesus is crucified, and it's so touching, and and that's what came to my mind. I said, well, here was Jesus. You know, he didn't do anybody any wrong. All he did was heal and help people, and and people still hated him and turned against him, even his own people. So who am I that, I'm not going to experience that? So that's what is helping me to get through it.
Yes. Okay. Now, always pay attention to how you speak to yourself. Okay. When you say, no matter what you believe, when you say that it's easier said than done, it becomes hard to do. Okay. So practice saying, no, this in reality is supposed to be my natural and normal response as the light of the world that God created me to be. Compassion, mercy, and grace are supposed to be easy for me. And so the more that I practice, okay, the more that I practice doing what I just said, that's 30-second prayer, the easier it's going to be. So yes, at first it might be hard only because of your programming. Okay, but you're here to deprogram yourself. That's part of the work that we're doing, deprogramming ourselves. But you have to do the work. But don't cut yourself from the work. Don't say to yourself that this work is harder than it is, because this is your love, mercy, compassion, grace. These are your natural and normal responses, no matter what the ego says. And so try it. Keep doing it. Keep doing it. And you'll see how easy and natural and normal it truly becomes. And then when you're able to come to a place of true peace in regards to this individual who was rude, then it's going to be a lot easier in the future when those kind of type of people come into your experience. It's going to be a lot easier for you to react with compassion, with mercy and grace. But it's only going to become easier for you to do that. Why? Because that specific individual came into your life to help you practice choosing forgiveness over judgment, and reminding you by doing so that you are worthy of peace. Christina, you have a comment or a question? Christina.
Yeah, I do. Sorry.
Sorry.
Sorry, on my phone. So thinking on what everyone was talking about, and I jumped in late, I apologize. From Wendy's comment after, I had an interesting experience, um, where someone that I love dearly, she reacted, and we were having a conversation, and she was overwhelmed with other things, and she completely just had a tantrum. And it was very interesting for me to observe because my whole body like clenched up. And there was a moment where, in the midst of her tantrum, I said, like, a part of me is a little frustrated right now because there's no reason for you to be upset. And like, let's communicate and let's talk about what's happening. But she was so caught up in her emotionality that she wasn't able to pause and process. And it was interesting because once we really got to the root of what was going on, it had nothing to do with me. It had to do with whatever was going on prior. And I felt very proud of myself after the call, even though I could feel it in my chest, I could feel it in my throat, like it was physically manifesting, the frustration that I had experienced. I was very proud that I told her, I was like, that I was feeling uncomfortable. And I think of all the times in the past where I didn't express myself that way, and how I wasn't able to calmly express how someone was making me uncomfortable, how someone was making me feel unsafe. And it goes back to, for me at least, with what Wendy was saying, like trying to forgive another, but really I'm recognizing how important the forgiveness for ourselves is, because I think that there were so many times that I stayed silent when I should have stood up for myself. And that doesn't mean pull out my whip and whip someone. That means express how I'm feeling and walk away from a conversation if I need to walk away from it. And I think that sometimes my inability to forgive another is really just a reflection of my inability to forgive myself for all the times that I didn't stand up for myself. And aside from my friend's reaction off after the call, I was also reflecting, how many times have I thrown a tantrum? How many times have I been the reaction, the reactionary one, the one that didn't have words and cried and, was just so caught up in my stuff that I was spewing on other people. And so it also made me realize like how like I can't always point the finger. Like it's easy for me to be like, oh, this person did XYZ, but it's like, how many times have I done that? And like when I zoom out and I see that, then I can have more compassion for the other person as well. Because I want grace and mercy extended to me, but when it comes to me to extend that same grace and mercy to another, it's a lot harder. But I want it, right? And so it doesn't work that way. Like it has to go both ways. So this has been really helpful because another situation, which I've commented to you guys in class around my sister, I've made amends to her. I cleaned up my side of the street, but there's a part of me that still doesn't feel safe with her. And I don't know what's going to happen when we're in communication or when we see each other again, whenever that may be, because she doesn't live here, so I don't have to deal with it right now. But I think that there's a part of me that even though I made amends to her, like I need to stand up for myself, not, point the finger or yell or get, aggressive in any way, but say that like I just don't feel safe with certain behaviors. And that's okay. And her emotionality is not my responsibility. And I just have the bad tendency to take on other people's stuff and personalize it when it's probably way beyond just me. So this has been really helpful for me too, because it's been a question I've had, like when I see her again, like what will happen? And this gives me the courage to trust that I can, express myself in a loving way, but stand up for myself, the woman that goes to the course today, that practices the course, that trusts in Christ, is not the same girl that crumbles when someone's upset at me, right? Because if I truly believe in these practices and these teachings and that Christ came and gave us this message through the course, then I trust that everything is perfect and I don't have to bow down to someone else's like emotional instability that I too sometimes have. So, yeah, this has been very helpful for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, we were talking about that a little bit with Joy. It's about setting up those self-loving boundaries. One thing that worked with me and my grandmother as we were growing up is, my grandmother was a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde personality, and she did love us, but she was like old school Latina woman, and so she would go off. And one thing, a couple of things that I learned there, and one was while she was going off, I didn't have to add fuel to the fire. And so the way that I didn't add fuel to the fire was I was silent. I let the fire little by little burn out or get to a place where we can actually have some sort of communication. And so I let her do what and say whatever she wanted to do and say, right? In the meantime, as I was doing that, I was seeing her and filling her with love in my mind and in my heart, okay? So she was blah, 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 saying a lot of not loving things. And I was quiet, but and as she was speaking that, I was sending her love, right? And so by sending her love, I wasn't closing myself off to the situation. I was just seeing the truth as true. Okay, only the love of my grandmother is true. Her words are just her past programming. Okay, so when your sister says to you something that's less than loving in nature, it's not really her. Okay, it's just her past programming. It's just her own trauma speaking to you. Okay, so there's no need to judge or punish her drama, her you know, her trauma, because it's only her trauma who can speak to you in a way that's less than loving in nature, right? And so we all have certain levels of trauma. Okay, and so just recognize, okay, my sister is only who God created her to be, which is the light of the world. That's who she truly is in this moment. When she's saying something that's less than loving in nature, I, as light of the world, I'm only going to see her light. That's all I'm going to see, no matter what she says or does right now. And I know that in this moment, I am with God and I am protected by God. And therefore, no matter what she says, I am safe. I am safe because God is one with me. God is by me in this moment. God has never left you. It's only when your ego somehow convinces you that you're alone that you can feel unsafe. But if you can remember, yes, you might sometimes feel alone, but you're never alone. God is always with you. So in those situations where your sister's being less than loving in nature, remember who's with you. Remember who walks with you. And as we all know that poem from the sand, you know, in those hard times, it was actually God carrying that individual, right? And so in those hard times, when you think you only see those 2 steps on the sand, God is carrying you. And so God is with you in those difficult situations. And so if you can recall this, okay, God is with me right now, no matter what my sister's saying. And so I'm only going to offer her what God would offer her. What would God offer her right now? God would offer her mercy, compassion, grace. And so I'm going to see myself offering her that. And I'm going to fill her with only love, compassion, mercy, and grace, understanding that I am completely safe. I am safe. Okay. And when you finally get the opportunity to speak, always begin with, you know, I love you. Okay. When you begin a sentence with I love you, you help bring down those walls. Okay. Because she's gonna be ready for that attack. After she attacks you, she's gonna be ready for that attack, right? But when you offer her your love in response to her less than loving words, that will begin to bring down the walls. Okay. So say I love you and then say what you honestly feel. And if you honestly feel, you know, I don't feel safe when you say this or that, when you do this behavior, but you say that after you said I love you. And so when you do that, when you come from a place of love, little by little, that will help crumble her own walls. And remember, it's just her trauma speaking. She in reality, in truth, she only loves you. You know, you're her sister. It's just, you know, her certain times she's blocked by her trauma, and so that trauma has to come out. You know, we were speaking earlier in the class. Whatever's in your cup flows out, overflows, right? So if it's pain and trauma in her cup and she hasn't dealt with it, that's going to overflow. And so in essence, you're helping her by her projecting onto you your trauma, but you know that trauma is not truly real. Only the love in her is real. So
Thank you
yeah,
for this the I love you suggestion. That's actually that's really awesome. That's true. Thank you.
yes, it's it helps bring down those walls when the ego's seeming to be in control. Yes. All right, folks. Thank you. Any other final comments or questions before we close? No? All right. The class will be up, God willing, tomorrow at 5 p.m. on the YouTube channel if you want to review it. I think it was a pretty useful class.
Yes.
That's good.
Yes.
Super useful. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Christina, Joey, Gay, Dave, Jen, Mike, Shelley, Wendy, Yvonne, and Lori.
Those great questions
you.
and great answers. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Good night.
Oh, good night.
Bye.
Good night.